So I think I've actually been able to prove that the CIA is in fact controlling us with education, because we know the differences between profit and non-profit schools by now, and how systemically fucked that is. And it's all intentional. It's all intentional for the sake of the fucking economy. So let's fucking get into why. During World War II, Germany and Japan, they were doing some fucked up shit. We know this. But what you may not know is that after that, the Soviet Union and the United States, who were all buddy-buddy during World War II, got the data from Germany and Japan, and then all of a sudden started rivaling their asses with the space race. Not only the space race, but right after World War II, both the United States and the Soviet Union came up with their own central intelligence agencies, in which they were doing experiments related to mind control and behavioral engineering. It's around this time in the 1950s that they start shutting down these more small schools that were 10 to 15 miles apart, that would house like 5 to 20, maybe 30 students. This is something I know about because my grandmother had one of these schools in her family and actually experienced the transition from more family-based farm schools to centralized town schools. She describes her experience as like a social game that she now felt forced to play. Whereas her experience in that family school was more authentic. She could go out in the woods and play. She could bring her dog. She had friends who were right in the area because you literally had to walk to these schools, hence why they were every 10 to 15 miles. But when school is set up like that, you can't control what is being taught to these students. The government used this as a way to transition education from state funding to federal national funding, aka giving them the control to dictate what is being taught to the entire population. You want to guess when the United States started passing laws about those educational reforms? In the 1950s, the same time the CIA was doing experiments in mind control and engineering of behavior. It was in 1958 that we had the National Defense Education Act. So federal funding was meant to improve education in science, math, and foreign languages, in response to the Soviet Union putting Sputnik 1 up in the air. Which adds up, because from the 1950s to the 1980s, the KGB was expanding its operations not just domestically, but internationally. So who knows, maybe them putting that satellite up into orbit gave them access to the whole world, and the United States felt obligated to go against that. Or maybe that's just a theory. Either way, it's pretty hypocritical, because in the 1960s, Operation Chaos happened, and that was a CIA United States thing. It was a domestic surveillance program. It was established to monitor anti-war and civil rights activists in the United States. Now, what else was going on in the 1960s that would motivate them to do something like that?